Production funding is provided by A. Reddix and Associates, Health Information Resource Center, offering short-term training for long-term professional careers in medical coding. HIRCVA.net.
Discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. The relevancy of historically black colleges and universities, the retirement of Norfolk City Manager Regina Williams, and the firing of NPR News analyst Juan Williams, all issues ready to be discussed by our Another View Roundtable pundits. So please welcome Roger Chesley, columnist for the Virginian Pilot, Carol Pretlow, Associate Professor of Political Science at NSU, community activist Bill Thomas, and Wil LaVeist, author, journalist, and Director of Community Outreach and Development with the Urban League of Hampton Roads. Welcome to the program, everybody. How you doing?
Hello, how are you?
Okay, I wanted to make it short because I know y'all have a lot to say. Let's start with the Juan Williams issue. Now, first, before we get going, just in case our audience is unaware, although I can't imagine why you would be at this point, of what happened to him. But about a week ago, he was on the O'Reilly Factor. He was, at that time, a news analyst for NPR and a commentator for Fox News. And he said the following. I mean, look, Bill, I'm not a bigot. You know the kinds of books I've written about the civil rights movement in this country. But when I get on a plane, I got to tell you, if I see people who are in Muslim garb and I think, you know, they are identifying themselves first and foremost as Muslims, I get worried. I get nervous. Now, that was a comment that he made on Fox News. 2 days later, that Wednesday, NPR let him go. And they said the reason that they let him go, according to Vivian Schiller, who is the CEO of NPR, we are a news organization that exists to serve the First Amendment. The issue, again, was Juan Williams on several occasions, with the thing that happened earlier this week being only the most recent, violated our news code of ethics to which he is beholden as a news analyst. And it happened again and again. And this time we decided that enough was enough. That is not a First Amendment issue. Okay, that was her response. One last one from Juan, and then we'll get into the discussion. Juan wrote on FoxNews.com in response to his firing, "This is an outrageous violation of journalistic standards and ethics by management that has no use for a diversity of opinion, ideas, or a diversity of staff. I was the only black male on the air. This is evidence of one-party rule and one-sided thinking at NPR that leads to enforced ideology, speech, and writing. It leads to people, especially journalists, being sent to the gulag for raising the wrong questions and displaying independence of thought." So here's the question to kick off this conversation. NPR's stance is that he broke ethical rules of journalism. Can you do NPR and Fox News? Should he have even put himself in that position to begin with?
Well, I guess that's the question for NPR. If they had a problem with Juan making this statement, why did they even allow him to be on its airways for as many years as they allowed him to? I don't think the comment that he made was smart, especially if I wonder how he's going to be able to interview people of the Muslim faith now. I mean, what's going to be their reaction to them? And I also thought it was somewhat strange, the rules that he abided by with NPR in terms of being a, quote, analyst, which I feel is a commentator anyway. I think it's a very fine line between commentating and analyzing. But nevertheless, you know, it's somewhat, I don't quite understand why he was allowed to do both stations for as long as he was allowed to do it.
Do you see a difference, Will, between a journalist, a commentator, and news analyst?
Oh, well, a news analyst and a commentator can be a journalist. I mean, a journalist practices the profession of journalism, which is about reporting the news. Photography journalism is also part of journalism. So
isn't it also about fairness and balance and all of those tenets?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So that gets into whether you're being a good journalist or a bad journalist, but it doesn't mean that you're not a journalist. I mean, George Stephanopoulos, is he a journalist? He used to work for the Clinton administration. We know where he's coming from. When he sits and he interviews someone, isn't he a journalist? Sure, he's a journalist. You have to be able to put aside your biases and to be able to report what is going on, balance it.
Bill, go ahead.
This is absolutely ridiculous. NPR is a liberal organization. They've had women on their columnists who've said the same thing. There's an example of that. Juan Williams is no different than going to a beer summit with Barack Obama, with the other issue with his friend at Harvard. Black men, and I am a thoroughly global person. White women generally have problems with authoritative black men. There's no way in the world that you fire somebody and then question his psyche. Does he need to go see a psychoanalyst or something? Yeah. That's just outrageous.
Well, now, in all fairness, she did apologize.
No. But she said what she meant. Some folks, Juan Williams is making money. He's talking on a medium that we're supposed to have freedom of speech. They didn't like it. And I agree with him. So why can't he say what he means? Why does he have to be afraid of the Muslim community? He's not a hater. He just said what he thought.
But in his role as an analyst, Carol, as a news analyst, where he is supposed to analyze the news and not have a personal opinion, that's the definition of an analyst. Is that correct?
They were taking a lot of power away from the general public. We are to fire him almost as well. The public is dumb. They won't know the difference between these, and the roles will merge. I think the public is intelligent enough to know when it's a strictly political analysis. When someone gets up there and there are percentages of this voter opposed to that voter, then they know this is political analysis. When it is a commentator who is saying, well, I'm looking at the social, political, cultural dynamics, they know that this is a commentator based on his or her expertise. A person who is just giving an opinion is not in any of those roles. So when I heard the clip, I said, he was giving his opinion. Now, was it a wise opinion? I think that he should have been more
politically correct.
Politically correct.
Well,
That's a good.
I don't know if I don't agree with that totally. The public does not always know. I used to be a columnist for the Daily Press.
Excuse me?
You don't
the public does not always know. Okay. The public, when you look at the newspaper, a lot of people do not know the difference between the news pages and the editorial page. They believe that what is said in the editorial page, Roger knows this, used to be an editorial page editor. They believe that if the editorial page said something, then that is the stance of the entire newspaper.
And so I've often been accused on some of my columns, well, why weren't you objective on that?
But that's not your role as a columnist.
Exactly.
Right,
But I want to ask the question of the two of you, because, Will, for one, I want to ask you about this.
We're the three that really understand it.
Yeah. No, not necessarily.
No.
But
that's why people aren't buying newspapers anymore, because they're sick and tired of hearing this arrogant stuff. Because people don't want to hear this arrogance that you just fighted out. People are smart. People aren't stupid.
That's not.
People aren't stupid.
Okay, let me ask this question of you, Will. You wrote on your blog.
Yes.
I see the firing as contradicting the open-mindedness and civil discussions and programming I enjoy. Mm-hmm. It goes against what I believe as a journalist, particularly one who is paid for expressing opinions. Can you be a journalist and also be paid for expressing opinions? To me,
absolutely.
It seems like
you asked me that before.
I think that's contradictory, though.
Because a journalist, if you understand, a journalist practices the profession of journalism, which is about reporting the news.
Facts.
Whether you do it in writing, whether you do it in broadcast, whether you do it with photography. Mm-hmm. So if you are a columnist, you are reporting the news, you are still practicing the role of journalism. Now, there are differences in that role. If you are
so you buy into opinion journalism.
Oh, that's what we get. That's what he does.
That's what I do. But I started on the news pages.
Okay, so that's what I'm about to ask you then. How do you recounsel what you used to do as a reporter?
Well, I still report.
Was that role different, I guess is what I'm asking, versus your column
now? I still
now?
report, I still talk to people, I still get facts, I still research, I do all those, and then I use all that to come up with, I think, is an opinion about different topics during the day. But I am in the box of being a columnist at the Virginian Pilot.
Okay, so when
I am not considered a straight news reporter. I'm considered a columnist.
Okay, you think, and Bill, you think people understand that?
I think people understand that, and it's really clear that I think it's understood. I don't even think this is the whole issue. The issue is, why did this woman use those tactics to fire this man? Well, I mean, that was outrageous.
I'll say, I still get calls and I still get emails about why I was not objective, why am I being so mean to so-and-so, and I've been doing this for between the editorial page and a column for 10 years at the Pilot now. So I'm not so sure how many people understand it. That's the first thing. Second thing, I don't know how much of this is really about race in NPR. I'm kind of surprised that you think that it is.
No. A duck is a duck. First of all, they don't have diversity.
Exactly?
They don't have diversity, and I can give you a perfect example. Several years ago, Hampton University disciplined some students and told them to don't put something on a certain page for a whole bunch of reasons. We had Marvin Lake from your paper and all the African-American journalists in a march out there to say, you guys have just destroyed the world. Now, this, I see, is really an elimination of expression of speech. Where are these people? They don't have African-American men working at NPR. You know that. You're in this organization. They don't. Because they don't
I'm not crying for Juan making $2 million over 3 years.
And
I'm not exactly worried about him.
So that's a good thing. But what I'm saying is the fact that they don't want to hear authoritative African-American men expressing their opinion. I'm telling you that. So liberals don't like that.
So you don't buy into the fact that Vivian says, and she said it, he just kept doing this over and over and over.
NAACP? Where is your organization? The Urban League. Where are these people? They shut this man out and deprived him of a living. And you guys are all sitting back.
I don't know that $2 million.
Let's let Carol bring
I don't think
that like that, please.
Me too.
But where are they? I mean, where's the principle? That's what I'm talking about. Where's the principle?
Let's let Carol.
I think there is a principle there, and I think that the way in which it was done should be analyzed. If they had had a problem with him before, and and said, well, okay, this will be your last time, or we're counting down to the number of times that you have to make an error, then maybe he would have been more circumspect in giving his personal opinion. And when I heard it, I was perfectly aware that I didn't think it was correct, but I was perfectly aware that was his personal opinion.
If you listen to the entire context, because he does go on to temper his remarks, saying that not all Muslims should be branded as extremists.
Sure did.
And he says, we don't want in America people to have their rights violated, to be attacked because they hear rhetoric from Bill O'Reilly and they act crazy. So was he charaded in a sense because they only took that one portion and did not look at the entire context?
I believe a lot of that went on, and I will in part agree with Bill.
Thank you.
But then also quickly not agree with you, because there have been several people, including Jesse Jackson, who have come out and have said that this was wrong. And I think Carol hit it, that the way in which this was done is what is the problem. And that's where you start to get into the overtones and the missed context in which he was talking about. And I also disagree with you all when you talk about he made $2 million, so he's okay. I can tell you, I have been fired. And when you are fired, it has a mental impact on you, regardless to how much money you are making. And when you are fired in a way, hold on. Well, you can disagree. And I said in my blog that a lot of times the people that call for firings or make it as if it's something light of are people who don't really understand what happens. And if you look at what Juan has written, Juan himself has said, I've been wounded by it. It's like, look, I still got fired. This has still had an impact on me. And I also said in the blog, good for him. He got $2 million out of it. Don't underestimate the fact that he hasn't been impacted.
I'm not discounting the psychological impact of being fired. But if you can say, I've come away with $2 million, at least I don't have to worry about how the electricity is going to be paid, how my mortgage is going to be paid, and will I be hired by somebody else. He knew that he was going to get hired immediately.
He knew that.
I would caution you all to experience it. And then let's see. Let's see if
was it a full day that he was even out of work?
No.
I mean, you might you experienced some lapse. I mean,
let me move to this point. What about what he said? Was it okay for any journalist, commentator, well, commentators, that's what they're supposed to give, is their personal opinions, but was what he said okay?
Yes.
In terms of him being a journalist?
You're the speech policeman now? I mean, yes. He says what he believes.
I disagree with it, but I absolutely say that he has a right to say that, and that's where NPR missed the learning moment, is that they could have dealt with it, and one, they could have reprimanded him, but one, they could have dealt with the issue. And again, when I talk about the open-mindedness of NPR that I appreciate, I'm expecting a reasoned argument and discussion. Again, I have said there's nothing wrong with being a black conservative. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
But on Fox News, they say that he is a liberal. They don't look at him as a
liberal on Fox
News.
He's absolutely a liberal on Fox News. But on NPR, he is a right-wing conservative.
And we act as if there's something wrong, again, overlooking the fact that studies clearly show African Americans are quite conservative on social issues. But so obviously, he's expressing something
any
that
black
is out
man
there.
Who talks about families and income and doing for themselves and expressing their opinion, from Martin Luther King to W.E.B. Du Bois to anybody you want to say, is looked at hard. I'm telling you.
Okay.
That's the reality. Now, is that race or what you want to make it?
One last thing I want to ask is particularly of the journalists in the group here. Mm-hmm. Could he not have just as easily said, in talking with people and understanding what's going on, that people have said and they are afraid, that they are concerned. In other words, not personalize it, because knowing what his role was with NPR and knowing what his role was with Fox News, could he not have positioned it that way and been perfectly fine, and there would have been no...
Surely, and I think he would have gotten a pass on that. But again, I go back to the point, first of all, I don't think it was a smart thing to say what he said, because first of all, the people who get on planes who have that type of garb, that wasn't the problem on 9/11. It wasn't the dress of the people. So there's that angle. But secondly, how are you serving these two masters, one NPR, one Fox News? It seemed like it was a mixed bag to begin with, and I was kind of surprised that he was allowed to have those two employers for as long as he did.
All right, move on to HBCUs, because we've been talking about this. Another journalist who decided to use some facts from 1974 in a column that he wrote September 28, 2010. His name is Jason Riley, and the headline was, "Black colleges need a new mission. Once an essential response to racism, they are now academically inferior." How many of us sitting here went to HBCUs?
Me.
I certainly did.
Yep.
Everybody except Mr. Tom.
Except Mr. Conservative.
Okay.
He doesn't see race. He doesn't see race.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes, ma'am.
He says that when segregation was legal, black colleges were responsible for almost all black collegians. Today, nearly 90% of black students spurn such schools, and the available evidence shows that in the main, these students are better off exercising their non-HBCU options.
Oh, that's absolutely incorrect. The info that he bases his article on is obsolete. It's not true. The truth is, there are very, very good HBCUs, and they're very, very bad HBCUs. They're very, very good white schools, and they're very, very bad white schools. And he'd mentioned the University of Phoenix as an option. They have a 4% graduation rate. Is that where you want to send your kids? You look at Spelman, you look at Howard, you look at Hampton University. They produce more PhD candidates through the undergraduate school in the top 10 in the country. Hampton University just built a $225 million proton therapy institute. Only one of 17 in the world and one of 8 in the country, and the largest freestanding in the world. So my daughter had options to go anywhere she wanted to go. She went to Hampton because I told her my experience at a majority white school was not as fulfilling as it would have been in the HBCU. So his whole argument is biased. He's nothing but a black Uncle Tom, and somebody needs to answer that, which we're trying to do it, because he's being paid to try to put us down.
Carol?
Well, I think I have a similar perspective, deleting that black Uncle Tom
Well,
part.
Is there such thing as a white Uncle Tom?
But I think I had both experiences. I went to Radford University initially, and I transferred not because I thought that I was going either inferior or superior. I wanted to specialize in foreign policy, and at that time, West Virginia State, which was a black institution, had more courses in international politics than any of the HBCUs. Now, once I got there, I then went to Fisk, which also had something else that I wanted to. So I think you have to look at each institution for what it offers, and not say one is superior to the other because of the color.
Roger, he says by the 1990s, there was this is from an economist, Roland Fryer of Harvard and Michael Greenstone of MIT, said that black colleges are inferior to traditional schools in preparing students for post-college life. By the 1990s, there was a substantial wage penalty. Overall, there's a 20% decline in the relative wages of HBCU graduates in just 2 decades. The authors concluded, by some measures, HBCU attendance appears to retard black progress.
Well, I guess I'm retarded then. That's what he's saying, is that myself and my 5 brothers and sisters who all went to Howard and graduated from undergraduate school there, we must just be terrible. We've had a doctor, a nurse, a journalist, a military man my oldest brother, who later went on and got 3 additional degrees. I guess if that's what retarded looks like, then I want more of that from around the country. I think the point is, if you're going to go after bad black schools, go after the bad white schools as well. If we need to do things better, we should. We know there are some problems. We know there are more options for black students nowadays. Look, both of my children that are now in college, they decided to not take that, as well as a lot of my nieces and nephews. Some have decided to go to black colleges. I think, yes, make the colleges better, but to get rid of them, I don't think that makes sense.
And don't you think there's something called individual responsibility?
Choice.
That a person who is a good student and an impassioned student, no matter where they are, if they are at a black college or if they are at a predominantly white institution, they are still going to be good students because of what is inside them.
Well, he says uneconomically, black colleges should be consolidated. For-profit entities could be brought in to manage those schools. Still, other HBCUs could be repurposed as community colleges that focus on developmental courses to compensate for the poor elementary and secondary educations that so many black children still receive.
I actually disagree in part with my panel. And I'm a proud HBCU grad from what is arguably the first HBCU, Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. His point that the schools need a new game plan is absolutely on point. Why? Because all colleges need a new game plan, and we should not take this as a HBCUs. Oh yeah, but we should not take this as an attack to say, oh, you're just dogging out all HBCUs, when we need to recognize that there are issues there that need to be addressed. And some of what he is suggesting, I mean, again, as somebody that writes commentary, as somebody that teaches argument, his premise, his claim in part is correct. His supports for his claims are off. But the fact that he's saying it needs a new game plan, he's absolutely right.
I felt it was an attack on black college.
It was definitely an attack, and to legitimize anything he says the way you are is totally incorrect. There are leaders at HBCUs that understand the new global economy and the education that we need to prepare all students for. And that's why I said, as a counter-argument, HBCUs, and particularly Spelman, Howard, and Hampton, produce the vast majority of PhD, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math postdoctorate candidates.
Well, if I could finish what I was saying, is that what happens in these situations, we say, oh, it's an attack. So we don't take any time to evaluate what are the points here and what needs to be worked on. So we always play this an attack, we're a victim. We never get to that. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of these schools do need to look at the curriculum, just as all of these A lot of the HBCUs.
How about the white schools?
And he did say all of them.
I just said a lot of all schools.
You know what, guys?
I think you just heard me say that.
We're out of time. We're out of time, and I hate that because I want to continue this conversation. Full disclosure, I also graduated from Bennett College, which is also an HBCU. Yeah. So I think that this panel shows that we did have some intelligentsia to come out of.
We'll beat ODU in football on Saturday. So we'll start right there.
We'll talk about Regina Williams later on in our next roundtable. Sorry we couldn't get to it today. Thank you all, and we'll be right back after this look at what's happening in Hampton Roads. And many thanks to our roundtable pundits for another view of the issues of the day. As always, we invite you to visit our website, anotherview.tv, and sign up for our eView newsletter. And if you're on Facebook, become a fan of Another View. Next week, free health care for Peninsula residents. We'll see you next time for Another View.
Production funding is provided by A. Reddix and Associates, Health Information Resource Center, offering short-term training for long-term professional careers in medical coding. HIRCVA.net.